Yeah, how'd you come up with the laundry?
So I have clearly not an extensive powerlifting background, but I powerlifted in high school for a little while. And you know, I've lifted since I was 13. Pretty familiar with how to press and you know, the proper form that's involved. And then I became a trainer. It's funny you're talking about biomechanics classes. I was taking a biomechanics class just because I kind of nerd out on the science. I enjoy learning about how the body moves, and how to apply it though it's differently. Like you were saying, you got to connect the two, otherwise it's worthless. So they were talking about chest mechanics. Doing the bench and they're talking about the shoulder. And what happens on the flat bench is it's not so ideal for the body.
So how long ago you thought process on this?
It took me a good year.
So was this in class you were thinking about it, or is this like?
No, I was taking it in class, and it just like a light bulb. And I was like, holy shit, why have they never gone back and looked at it?
Well, so one thing I'm gonna do, this fan is real loud. I want to have it real back. So like how long? So you said about a year, but like how long ago did you come up with this concept?
So that's I guess the initial when it was born was about a year ago. I've literally been in my hand in my garage in the Texas heat.
What part of Texas?
Dallas. So yeah, it's been real hot. But like I was saying, you were talking about biomechanics and how people are they're almost obsessive over the science, and it really means nothing unless you can put that science into practice, like a doctor. You know, and just go to school, but they learn how to implement the procedures and stuff. So they were talking about chest mechanics and how the humerus moves with the shoulder blade and how it's supposed to have a rhythm to it. And what the flat surface of the bench it does to the shoulder joint over time, and it interrupts that movement. And most people have zero idea about that. But obviously, the coaches now, strength coaches especially, different ways to modify the exercise for safety and performance. So I took that and I looked and it just kind of, I don't know, a light bulb went off in my head. I was like, damn, what? All these years, they've known about this, they've documented it, injuries happening because of it. This could be people's careers, you know? And why they never looked at the design of the bench itself? Why do we keep doing the same shit, but just, you know, coming up with other, meanwhile they're addressing the complexity of cables and the strength curve and different plate loading processes, but they haven't looked at the surface where the most basic element of stabilization is going on. So that's when it went off, and it's just,
dude, I love that because a lot of people don't even understand the history. So I always tell, like my coaches, I tell the stories. So like little girls watching her mom cook Thanksgiving dinner. Mom's got this big old turkey. She cuts the front third and the back third off turkey. The little girl's like, Mom, why are you doing that? She's like, I don't know. That's what my mom did, and turkey was always really good.
Right. Yeah.
So she calls up her grandma. She said, Grandma, why you waste? Right? We learn in school you don't waste. So, well, honey, honestly, I don't know. That's the way my mom did it, and turkey was really good. So, luckily, this girl's great-grandma is alive. She calls her up, asks her the same question. Great-grandma says, well, honey, I grew up in the Depression. We had a really tiny oven. The whole turkey wouldn't fit me up. So, like, if you don't understand where things come from and keep perpetuating it, and that's why I love it, because I teach all the time, and most people don't even know that the bench press wasn't actually even a thing until like the 60s. Everybody pressed overhead or did bed press. Laying down and pressing is a relatively new piece. And the other thing is that powerlifting is a sport. So I've written extensively about this, but every research about squatting is actually only 66% accurate because it uses the standard of powerlifting in parallel, which when you squat, like if I go like this, that's a squat because I bent the ankle, the knee, and the hip. That's all that's required. But in powerlifting, it's parallel. That's the sport standard. Right. And so all the research worked off of sport standard instead of joint angle. So I've completely like the term parallel, by the way, the term parallel for like general population, sports, anything except if you're trained powerlifters. Now that's a real sport. Parallel should not be a part of any gym, any strength and conditioning facility. It should, because based on femurs, lengths, all this, see, it's not. I can squat the parallel and have my knees are at 90 degrees, or I can be 8 inches above parallel with my knees at 90 degrees. And that's what I love about what you're saying. It fits above my philosophy is I want to dig back to why. And so the fact that a bench is like this is just arbitrary. It's basically just a couple of guys in like Missouri came up with the list, and it'd be like us sitting at lunch coming up with something. And then 100 years from now, it's like them fuckers were just writing on a napkin, eating lunch, but people still doing it. I mean, it's probably gonna be great.
No, you make a great point too. And I tried to implement the lack of knowledge you have about general exercise too, because what keeps people coming back is obviously results. And most people don't know a fucking thing about how to execute properly or how to even sit up and brace properly. So I try to think about a way that I can create something that can put them right in position. The minute they lay down, and it's up to their central nervous system to take over and execute. So they're set up, they're stable because it forces them.
That's Yoda Coaching.
So,
right? You're not telling them what to do. You're just putting them, that's what we talk about, great coaching, right? You're putting them in a position. I love that, man. I think this is really awesome. I love that, you know, you can just attach it to a regular bench. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you don't have to like, take like all new equipment or throw away what you're doing. So I really like that. So how long have you been using it?
About it'll be a year and maybe, no, it'll be a year in like November,
I was gonna say,
late November, December. But I really, for me, it was always, I'm gonna be honest, last summer is when I started benching. I would bench, and I'd even said this in my content, like, chest was my worst. I hated it. So it would be dumbbells, hammer strength, whatever. So when I got introduced to that, I started because my shoulders so tore up, just from everything else. So I genetically have a wide bench. So I would always feel it. I'm like, damn, dude, like, what's going on? So when I got this, and I started understanding what it was doing, then I was taking the pressure off my shoulders. I was like, okay, well, what's gonna happen when I take it off? Well, naturally, I'll put myself in that position. And now that's how my reps went up as I learned how to use this, because I learned how to position myself not to burn out my front delts. I feel, obviously gonna feel some, but I'm saying I used to be on fire with my front delts. And I think they was relatively doing a lot of the work. So I started using it in more of a routine. And when I started doing that in a routine, I'm able to be prepared for something. I'm able to bench twice versus me once a month, maybe.
I love that, right? Like, look, right on the wall, our philosophy is zero pain on training. So, like, for us, like, you guys, you know, here today, what did we see? We saw 11 to 13-year-olds learn how to train. We see, you know, people in their 50s and 60s, right? Like, for us, it's that whole range. Like you say, we want an 8-year-old is the first place they train, and an 88-year-old is the last place. And so for us, it don't matter if they're a pro athlete or whatever. Like the whole goal is we gotta stay healthy, because what we do in here, unless we're a powerlifter, what we do in here is to be better in our sport, in our life. And so something like this, like obviously, you know, and again, for everybody, I haven't used this yet. Like it's the first time I'm seeing it, other than like you know, video that Dan said, like, you know, but yeah, which is why like I was intrigued, because for us here, keep you tell you train should make you feel better, not worse. And so for us, we're always looking like, can I get a tool that gives us our coaching ability to be a Yoda coach? To sit back and just, instead of like, oh, do this, like lay down, push. You know what I mean? Like that's it.
They interact better, not babysit.
That's what I always tell the coaches, making you a great coach, a world-class coach, I don't give a shit about the technical and that. why I care is that when you're a world-class coach and you're a Yoda coach, you have a lot more time to build relationships. You have a lot more time to find out about the person so you can impact them, right? You have more time to put their glasses on and find out what their glasses look like. Exactly. It's not about, like, I care about whatever fucking muscle is working. It wasn't about the program. It was about holding them accountable. It was about teaching them about mindset. It was about building their confidence, right? And so, like, if a tool like this can help us do that with our young athletes, with our older adults, we got people in their 60s, like, a lot of stuff hurts. So I'm definitely, real bumps of just be able to use it. And honestly, like, with our clients, because we have so many kids, right? We have $220 worth of facilities. Like, we train a lot of people, and especially a lot of kids, like that 11 to 13-year-olds learning how to train.
It's sad.
A ton of those.
I've been telling Brandon that my goal, because I went through the football program, we had a strength coach. I don't know that he was a certified strength coach, where he actually had to do the CSCS, but he knew more about lifting than the other coaches, so he was the power coach too. So I learned some things from him, but going back, I'm like, man, we didn't even fucking stop.
Well,
like,
and I think, like, one thing that I was trying to keep in mind, just like we were talking about teachers earlier, that coach was doing the best he could with the information he had at that time. Right? Because, like, for me, he's investing in you and those people. He's giving up his time to make you better. He's just doing the best job he can with the tools he has. And that's why, like, and that's for me, like, I'll tell you my philosophy today, like, we have these load master variations, and you have to earn the right to the big barbell and put it on your back. Yeah, and so that we have the same thing with bench press. Is we have a load variation standard where it's like, why would you put a 45-pound bar in a person's hand who can't do 20-pound dumbbells for 10 reps, right? Like, you don't. And so I love this because this allows us to get those kids in better positions without coaching as much. And like I said, we focus on the stuff that's really important.
Right, and that's safety.
Yeah, so show me kind of, because like I said, I'm as ADHD as it comes, and I'm staring at the little button, and I want to push it so bad. Like, I don't know what it does, but like for me, when I see a button, I was like, I want to figure out what it does.
That's what they're there for, right? So this, first of all, it sits in your lower back too, stay with the lower spine. But not everybody has the same torso size. There's tall or short. So this, push this in and pull it out, and you'll be able to adjust the weight.
Cable stacks the same thing, so it's easy. Yeah, like I was thinking it was just like you push a button and it just goes.
Right.
So yeah, that's easy. Cable stack, like cable stack.
Basically, yeah. Okay, just pull the pin out.
No, that's easy. So like, yeah, you're taller, shorter.
So because not everybody's the same size.
So what setting do you have adapted to?
No,
most people use it when they're all the way closed. So second generation, I might.
I do. Well, but like I like this because like we train some really good football players, like 6'6", 6'7". Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's different traits, such a variation in population.
So I like that you sat in the right spot.
Well, say my first rodeo.
So, as you know,
I may never abuse this, but I spent a lot of time laying on my back.
Right. Do you want some dumbbells or something?
I'm just feeling it out, right? So remember, it's like OCD is fun.
Right.
Like, I'll tell you, like every heavy bench I ever did, I have the exact same routine. Like, even it's funny, Elite did this thing in 2004. There's this picture of me, like getting ready to take a lift, and it's like a band manual, like how to use bands. It's what they use for the cover videos. And then in like 2014, when I won that world championship, took a picture of me and put them side by side, and the look on my, like, it is mirror image. So if you go and approach it, exactly the same. So it's 10 years later, exact same approach. Yeah, let me grab the logo.
And we can hand it to you.
I ain't doing 150.
So I'm gonna wait till you give me your feedback and then I'm gonna add a few things.
Well, what I like a lot about this, we talk about points of contact with our athletes, and so for us, this naturally gives that lower back of stabilization and that little bit of arch to that we want to see, where it's hard not to stick your chest up here, right? Like it's hard, like when I lay down, I can't flatten out, where a lot of people get too flat, or they're like this, that they're, you know what I mean? Like, and so I like this a lot, where it just feels good, where my shoulder blades, like as I go down, it's really, yeah, that motion feels good. Like obviously I know how this feels normally, and like what I like is just that little bit of cut there. It allows my shoulder blades to move a lot more freely. I like that, man.
You absolutely nailed it. That is the exact reasoning for those panels.
Well,
allow that free motion of the shoulder.
well, the other thing is like your lats are so important in the bench, and that sets you in a nice position where the lats can work nice and easy. Like I like that a lot. Like one of my biggest pet peeves is people who've never bench press heavy. They're always like, squeeze your shoulder blades back together real hard. It's like, no, you've never put, like, let me put 600 pounds in your hand, you do that. And that's what it is, right? It's a lot of like, well, the EMG study says this is better, or it's like a physical therapist, and that might be appropriate. And that's what happened in our field, right? Like physical therapists, they work with like a grandma, and it's like she's fragile in the back, but they have PhDs and they do these studies. It's like then they try to apply that to performance. It's like stay in your lane. Like I'll make people brutally strong. You rehab people. Y'all stay in our lane. Everything's good.
That's why we have different specialties.
Well, yeah, like that happened. I don't know if you remember. I don't know. You might not remember this, but so when I was first at Westside, so they did Muscle Fitness did an article about Westside stuff and training. So it was a great feature. And at that time, the big thing was there's therapists who've done a study that when you lift big heavy weights, you want to suck your stomach in as far as you can because it activates your transverse abdominis, which is like the girdle of your head. And so the West Side, right, and it was all about taking big air in your belly and as big as possible. And so it was this big argument where we would always argue with people, well, you know, I was like, look, suck your belly in and put a lot of weight on your back, and you won't stabilize it. What do you want to build a house on, a big foundation? And so it's funny because about 5 years later, it wasn't even an argument, and they debunked it. It's like, oh no, we were wrong. And it's like, well, we've been saying that for years. And so I love all this because like getting people to understand how to position their shoulder blades so that the lats can stabilize. Like, you know, we talked about, right, it's from my bicep bar. And a lot of people, you know, don't know that your bicep tendon comes in and actually integrates into your shoulder labrum, and you can't actually separate them. So when you tear a bicep, it destabilizes your shoulder via that bicep tendon and labrum. And so when I came back and started benching after my biceps tear, dude, I was like, it hurt so bad. Like, I mean, at my best, like, I love dips. Like, I've always loved dips. Love them. And so I mean, I did sets of 5, like, with 300 pounds hitting it. And so, like, I could dip, like, I mean, I love dips. I don't know if they help me a lot. It was fun to show off.
Yeah, I mean, I used to do it.
But like when I came back, I couldn't even hold myself barely. When I would go down, I'd be like shaking because of that labrum. So we really work to teach people how to stabilize in that, you know, like your bending bar and all this stuff. I don't need to tell you guys, but this, like what I felt was I was trying to be sloppy when I laid down, like just because that's our clients, right? Like a lot of them, like they're like, kids, wife,
they know no better.
You know, they're like, just lay down. So when I laid down, I was just kind of trying to be a little sloppy just to see, because that's a lot of our clients, right? And then the other thing is I tried, like, I won't put leg drive because that's a lot of what we teach. And what I liked was, like, everything's kept in a good position with it. But, like, again, like, just being sloppy because, to me, that, like, I can execute on anything.
Right. Because you know what you're doing.
But also, it's, you know, I started lifting when I was 15, so I've been doing this for 30 years.
Right.
So,
perfected. It's,
you know, but I can say it feels good because, I mean, I'm getting older, I got a lot of stuff. Like, I've had like 15 surgeries on different things. Like, I got a lot. Like, my knee, I don't have an ACL. Like, everybody knows, like, I always tell people I ain't limping, I'm pimping. But my knee is I got no ACL, I got no meniscus, I have crazy bad arthritis. Like 8 years ago, like I started rolling with Vitor and that whole crew from Brazil, and the GF team was here for 3 months, training for Worlds, and like I was loving it. I was like, yeah, I got the juices flowing. My knee kept hurting worse and worse. And also it was 9 years ago because I was 35, because I remember I went to an ortho, it was just, I mean, it was hurting so bad. And like they took pictures and he said I would make it 5 years without a replacement. Then I went to another ortho, screw this guy. And then that guy was like, you won't make it 5 years without a replacement. I'm like, well, I'm wasting my time. But it's 9 years later now, and because of the nervous system pieces and strength training, right, like all these pieces, and honestly, a cat I met at Swiss, he's from Australia, and I'm telling you guys, she goes, his name's Ian King. Now, you guys ain't never gonna heard of Ian King, but this cat's like the OG of strength conditioning. When I say OG, I'm talking like in 1980, he was training Olympians, like no one in the world. Like he's trained Olympians in like 5 or 6 Olympic cycles. Like everyone knows the name Charles Poliquin, right? Like that's a big name. Poliquin flew to Australia in like 83 to get Ian, and then the Canadian government brought him up. Ian, like he came up with like, you know, tempo work, that was Ian, like so much stuff we do today. Ian's like such an OG, no one knows who he is. Because right, he was that like so far ago, there was,
He's not getting the credit.
yeah, but he taught me so much. So he also helped me with my knee on a lot of stuff, which is great. But again, like through just working hard, learning from others, I'm here. But like that's the same with the bench press. Like, but the bench press was always my weakness, right? That was, I mean, in college, not with touch and go. We used to do this thing called Riftathons for raise, because I played Division II, so like we had big budgets, and so in order to have like full scholarships, we had to raise some money. And so, you know, I did a touch and go at like 240, 245 at the time. That's where I played roughly. I did touch and go with 535 as like a 21-year-old. You know what I mean? Like, bench was always my jam. Bench was always my jam. So like, but what I learned was when I started really coaching a ton of people in it, was like, oh, it was like Barry Sanders, put your shoes on and run. Like I was always like, lay down and push. Like, how do you bench press 500? Just lay down and push. You know what I'm saying? But you know, we coach so many people, like at this point, you know, I don't even know, like, I mean, just, so, like, I can't even extrapolate, like, you figure we've been around 11 years, been training, you know what I mean? I've been training people, you know what I mean, since I've been training people for 23 years, like.
Did you ever train powerlifters?
No, I train powerlifters. No, I definitely train powerlifters. Like, for me, I believe, one of the best people in the world at looking at the big three and letting you know where your weaknesses are, special exercises to get them up. So like, for instance, like everyone now, like this therapists all like, oh, hell, tilt, this and that. Well, like when we started, this was like, I don't remember how long ago, it was like 8, 9 years ago, I was doing some Friday technique videos, and it was just because we were slow, and so we were just shooting videos like in space. And when you go back and look at it, it's funny. The space is so tiny, like compared to here, like walls were purple, like it was crazy. And so, but I was talking about how to finish deadlifts and your hip position, all this, 3 to 9 years ago. And now it's like this popular thing where everybody's like, oh, this
Kicks it up.
and so that's where, like, for me, working with I love working with powerlifters and watching that. But you know, when I started the Spot Athletics, the guy who, like I said, we had 2,000 square feet, was inside the volleyball facility. We literally had a black chain link fence we just put up around the space. It was fun, and those are some fun days. Like, and so the guy said, "Are you know, obviously, like, I'm, you know, sees me, he's like, oh, you train powerlifters, like, he was familiar with Westside a little bit. He's like, oh, you work powers to do that?" And I was like, hell no. I was like, they're broke and they break shit, right? So like, I love working with power. Like, in our field, we got a mono, we have everything, right? However, I do it as like, I'll consult here, consult there, and we have like a powerlifting group, but they're like professionals who want to powerlift. For us, from day one, it was about helping young athletes, because right, I wanted that Bill Murray experience. So from day one, it was helping young athletes and then general population, because everybody wants to help the pro athletes that are like, but those guys are going to be okay. But who's trying to help the mom who's stressed out, who doesn't make time for herself, who doesn't like herself? Like that to me, I can impact that person's life, especially the 11, 13-year-old. Those are my favorite, because I can literally, like that girl over there, I walked up to her and I just gave her a couple little things, right? Because Levi's doing, our semi-private, so it's like 7 kids. So he's coaching hard, but 7 kids, you can't see everything else. And I've been doing this so long. And so I just gave her a couple little things, and you saw her whole position changes. Now that girl, that might be a skill she needs the rest of her life. And I showed her that I could. And that's the thing. Like I didn't get paid to walk over there. Like our business takes in the same amount of money. You guys see, like we're in a conversation. I love talking to you guys, but like we say, we don't have clients. We have spot for them. So this is our family. One of our rules, you have to know the name of everybody that walks in that door, because this is our house, and you wouldn't let someone in your house without knowing it. It's true. So and this is the thing, and that's the thing. It's our spot fans. So I love, because obviously I need to use this more, because again, in theory, I love this, right? But until now, the fact that you use an application that's helped you, well, that means a lot to me, right? But again, you are different than our 12-year-olds or our 42-year-old like moms or dads. Now, I would think theoretically that would help them more, because they don't have your experience or my experience.
Basic knowledge.
Exactly. And so I love this, because one thing I know about teaching, and I love motor learning, it's like one of my favorite. I love motor learning. And so what I know is that if I can put a kid in great positions, like, I don't know if you guys know, like hinging, like hinge. So I came up with a way to teach the hinge that is like, it's insane. Like, no one uses it, and it teaches it perfect. But we don't actually say anything we want to do. We actually tell them some other things that makes them do it. But once we do that enough, we don't have to coach them, because that motor pattern just happens because they're repetitively doing it. So when you repetitively do the same pattern, the nerves get myelinated, and all that myelination does is it creates a super highway for that pattern. So at first I'm learning, it's like I'm trying to figure it out. Once that pattern gets myelinated, like you never lose it, right? You never lose it. And so with this, if we can myelinate in and ingrain that, like the way it works is it drops down into basically the base of your brain and becomes a skill. That's unconscious competence. It's the highest level. This, man, no, I can't wait to use this more and train and use it with clients, man. This is sweet. So now, like, this is like a harder, is this like a plastic?
It's polyurethane.
Okay.
So this has been crush tested 2,200 pounds. We stopped it at 2,200. Probably gonna go more. And it's
how has that been for you, man? Like dropping, like these, like drop dumbbell on it. I'm not saying it's like an
it survived the crash, man. Like flew off the back of the book.
Okay, cool. Because like that's one thing, right? We got kids, we got like,
that ain't
we need durability.
That was one of the things that we took very seriously.
And then this, like, so you just strap this in. Simple.
It goes in the slot.
And then how does? Oh, that's super.
It's just a
I think they're on upside down, honestly, but otherwise it's just
it gets long.
Yeah, that's easy. Yeah, no, that's super easy.
So, and then it folds too, so it takes up, it's floor space, very little. So you put it's upside your shoulder. You go in your case, you push down to that.
Oh, I didn't see that.
So those are tough, those are gonna break you.
I love it, man. I can't wait to do this. This will be great.
Yeah.
I appreciate you bringing this in. I appreciate you just creating things to move just fitness and everything forward.
And like you were saying, people that they might be depressed or whatever, just learning how to master one exercise could keep them coming back and
building confidence.
Exactly.
Like I tell everybody that the number one thing we can do in here, which you can't necessarily measure, is build confidence. That's the number one. It's like you keep working.
Sometimes that's all it is. It's one.
That's it.
Literally that one piece of that whole thing.
Well, I love it, man. Well, thanks for bringing this down, guys. Absolutely. It's been awesome.
Appreciate you having us out.
No, I appreciate you guys' time. I always say time's the most precious thing we have in this life, so appreciate you guys coming down. And obviously, we spent this time together with you guys to make the trip. I know that takes a lot of time. Everybody's busy, so I appreciate you guys' time tremendously.
Happy to do it. You know, you're obviously a respected name, very respected name in the industry. So where you spend time, that's the elite of the elite. So,
but I'll say too, you know, that created a foundation. Like everything you go through in life, like I've had a lot of shit. You've got a lot of shit. One thing I learned to say that's amazing is that trauma is just untapped potential. So once you can tap into that and use those experiences to move everyone else forward, then like that's what magic happens. You know, well, thanks, man. Hey, I appreciate it. Thanks for coming down, man.
happy to do it. I'm happy. The timing was just perfect.
Well, I gotta connect you. I need to connect you with my girl Rock. She's amazing. She lives in Dallas.